Welcome to the Answers Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answers Yes podcast. Another great show. We're in the dead of winter here in Montana. We've been getting snow for the last 3 days. I'm loving every minute of it. If you follow along on my story, you'll know that I'm wrapping up my 75 hard program. I've got one more day tomorrow, and I'm feeling great. You know, if you haven't looked into the 75 hard program, I would highly recommend it. It's not a weight loss program first and foremost. It is a mental strengthening program. The benefits, of course, you probably lose a few pounds and get stronger and fitter and healthier. But really, it's about a mind strengthening program. So look into that. If you need some help with it, I'm a first form Legionnaire. I'd be happy to help you with that. I can help you get your nutrition on. And if you go to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, we've got a great library of books there for entrepreneur-minded people. That's the syndicate that I put on every Monday night. And I would love to have you check it out. The library is accessible for everybody. With that being said, this year I've really been trying to bring entrepreneurs and people on this show that not only have a story, but can bring a little extra fire to the conversation with what they're doing and to bring some tools and resources to you. So today I have John Mendez on the phone. John, thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, Jim, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for, going a little bit around out of your way to help get back on. I know we had a little bit of trouble with the link, but I'm glad to be here and I'm glad to just be talking to you today and sharing. Hopefully, I should share some good advice to your listeners.
Well, you know what I love, John, is when you have like-minded people on the show because they know one of your other guests and it resonated with them. And when I got your email, it just felt like the conversation would be aligned with the messaging that I push out. And then, of course, I read your bio, like, oh, I got to have John on. This seems like it would be a great interview. So, look, my listeners love to hear some background about who our guests are. So how about you give us some background on you, where things started for you as an entrepreneur and how you got into business where you're at today. And then I want to dive into some of the things that you're especially at right now.
Yeah, definitely. So, my quick tagline, I say, I'm a realtor, podcast host, and founder of Stop and Stare Media, which is like a social media agency that I started. And to tell you a little bit about my background, how this all started. For me, I grew up, it was like about 9 of us in a two-bedroom apartment in the projects, and my grandparents were the one that raised me. My mother was in my life, but me and her never had the best relationship. My father was fairly absent all my life. We're on good terms now. But it took a lot of years to get to that point. And for me, I always felt like I had a gift of wisdom a little bit. I felt like mentally I was a couple years ahead. I didn't really resonate with a lot of the stuff that, to high schoolers and college people got going. But it wasn't until really the pandemic that my journey really started. And I know it was an unfortunate time for a lot of people. For me, it was probably the best time of my life because I was able to find myself and find clarity as to what I wanted to do. And I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that kind of shifted my mindset enough to realize another way of viewing the world out there that is not being taught here at school. So I was in the middle of my third semester in college, and from kind of realized that, okay, I have this winter break. What am I going to do with all this free time now? So between that, that fall and spring semester of my sophomore year, I was on YouTube just watching videos on double speed, started reading books and listening to podcasts on how to get into personal finance, how to start making changes. I came back that fourth semester in the spring. Everything was still online. And around February, I was just like, man, I'm going to sign up for my real estate classes. And so I'm just going to sign up for my real estate classes. And from there, pretty much, I signed up for my class and I stopped showing up to my college classes. I never looked back. I ended up a couple months later getting my license as soon as I turned 20, and then started my podcast about 4 months after that. So December of last year. So we're close to a year now. And now I'm getting into the public speaking space a little bit. Just had my first speaking gig literally yesterday of the day we're recording. And that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
John, I can't believe all the bombs that you just dropped. That first of all, congratulations on figuring out your own path in life. You breezed right through that. You grew up in the projects in a two-bedroom apartment with nine family members. I got a bunch of animals and they're outside. I can't deal with them. I couldn't imagine what it was like growing up with nine family members in a two-bedroom. But the first thing I want to touch on, and maybe we'll go back to that, but what I want to touch on is that you picked up a book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, uh,
Yeah.
and it resonated with you. And I can't emphasize that enough. Oddly, that I did bring up the library that we have on our website at the beginning of the show, not knowing you were going to say that. But I can't emphasize enough how great some of these tools are that are available to people. Most of the times free. I mean, you can go to a public library and probably rent that for free. But they're not that expensive, and the wisdom you gain from that. So let me ask you specifically, okay? You picked up the book and you read it. Was it like a light switch? All of a sudden you went, wow, you know what, I can be this person, or I can do something different.
Yeah, honestly speaking, the book wasn't all that great. It's not any book ever, but it made me see like, hey, it's like I realized that when it comes to money and finances, like, um, and it's called Rich Dad Poor Dad. And the example in the book, it's like the rich dad, the poor dad would say, you got to save your money, you got to do this, and the rich dad would say other things like otherwise, and it kind of goes through Robert's story a little bit, and it was like, okay. Some of the things that the poor dad was saying are things that I've been taught
Yeah.
and things that I've heard in my life, and I constantly hear all the time. So it's like, okay, so let me see, if there's more about this stuff. But it just planted that seed in me. But it did enough to get me interested to look more into this stuff, and then from there, I just kept on going with it.
I love that you're frank about the fact that the book, it wasn't that great. It's not an Ayn Rand novel, 1,000 pages like hers are, filled with wisdom from the 20s. But sometimes we can read something, and if it's a 150-page book, business book, and you get one sentence out of it that changes your life, and clearly, I want to dwell on this point a little bit. The book wasn't that great, but there was enough of a nugget in there for you to go, okay, there's something to this, and you acted on it. Um, did you talk to your family about, the impression and the direction that you were going, or did you just act on your own and go do what you needed to do?
I kind of told them along the way, honestly, they're all against it. So now, I live with my grandparents and my sister. Um, and so when I told my grandparents that I was dropping out, kind of told them while I was in process, and everything was online. So they're also like a little older. They only speak Spanish, so they don't really understand what's going on most of the time. And so I pretty much told them like, yeah, I'm not going back to school. And they were like, "What? What do you mean you're not going back?" Oh, this is in Spanish, of course. But and they were just wondering why. And then my grandparents have a bad habit of talking a lot, especially when my uncles and aunts come around. And then all of them were like, "John, you should go back to school. And John, you should go do this. And John, you should do this." And a lot of shoulds, right? And
Yeah.
the problem with a lot of that advice is that it's coming from a good place. But if I firmly believe, to an extent, right? If you haven't been to where I want to be or where I want to go or haven't been there or aren't there currently, it's like your advice. I'm not gonna hold it in the same regard, that I would someone who is I want to be in life. And so a lot of the time they say this out of security, out of safety, but getting a degree doesn't mean security. Look at all the jobs now that are laying people off. I think like Twitter lost like half their employees or something like that. Meta's dropping people left and right. So it's like, I was like, I'd rather have security by my own definition. I just kind of went with it, and I'm a bit of a rebel, so they couldn't convince me otherwise. But so eventually, once they seen that I wasn't just BSing and not going back to school because I was over it. I actually had something that I wanted to do. Um, they started to finally pick back on, but it was a certain point in time where I got my real estate license, and my grandfather would say, "Oh, licenciado." That means the license guy, but he would say it sarcastically. He would have like a sarcastic undertone, and it
Yeah.
wasn't until maybe like 5 months into real estate where he finally was like, okay, like he stopped saying it with the sarcastic undertone and actually started putting a little bit more, I guess, respect on what I had going on.
It's interesting, John, because so often our families play that role in our lives. And, it's tough enough just to go out and get involved in business, whether that's real estate or retail or something else. That's hard enough. But when we're also battling the turmoil within our own families of what they think is best for us. And I think you said it very maturely that if the people that are giving you advice are not living the life that you want to live, I think you've respectfully turned it down. I know enough about Spanish families. You probably weren't mean about it, but I'm sure you respectfully turned down their advice. And that is so mature of you. To do that. And I love hearing that your grandfather's coming around a bit. Um, have you been supported by your friends in this endeavor? Or are they equally like your family?
So my friends didn't really have much of a say. A lot of my friends are still in college, and as I said, it's during the pandemic time as well. So, um, one and so after I dropped out of school, right? I didn't mention this part in the story, but I picked up a job when I got started my real estate class. I picked up a job at K Jewelers. Then also still work at a restaurant part time. So I picked that job up. So that kind of summer before I got licensed, I was working close to 70 hours. So I actually didn't hear much at all from my friends whatsoever. I was working pretty much literally every single day of the week on top of studying for my real estate license. And then by the time I got licensed, they all went back to college. So it's not like I they didn't support me because they didn't want to or were talking down about me. It's just that I was just so busy that I really didn't speak to almost anybody during that time period when I was, working and trying to get my license and also trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my podcast and stuff like that. So, um, but as I started to like calm down a little bit, yeah, but the community that supported me the most wasn't my friends, it wasn't my families, it's the strangers. We're not strangers anymore, but there's this mastermind group that I joined. There are a bunch of real estate agents from across the country, and those people support me like no other. Like if you're looking at my birthday or any post, anytime I post on Facebook, it's all, all these other agents that I've been able to meet. It's like, oh my goodness, John, we love your story. You're so inspiring. John, thank you for what you do. And it's, strangers that have supported me more in this journey than anyone I've ever known personally, excluding my girlfriend, but
Yeah, right. Excluding her, right? John, what's been your driving force? I mean, you're overcoming hurdles left and right, at an early age, and oftentimes people get derailed by those hurdles. What's been your motivation in your drive?
I think there's like a certain calling for more that I didn't realize I really had until I kind of got into entrepreneurship a little bit. I wasn't a born entrepreneur. I didn't have paper routes. I wasn't in school selling candy bars, right? And entrepreneurship is, as I said, as once I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, that's when my mind started to shift. But even in high school, like when it came to losing or like when it came to gym, right? I was one of those kids in gym that I played every day in gym like it was the NBA finals. And if you were on my team and you were picking up slack, you weren't carrying your own weight, I would get super angry all the time, right? But it's like the certain calling just I want to be in my best shape. I want to build my most successful life, and then getting clarity as to okay, I'm getting this calling for more, but more what? Right? And that's why I started getting a little bit of clarity. It took me a while to really figure out what I wanted to do. And once I did, it's like, just helping others, build wealthy, abundant lives while I'm on the way there. And from there, that's kind of just my drive because I feel like, and this is an extreme way of viewing things. So a lot of people might not resonate with, but um, there's something called like this different levels of connection, right? If you know 100 people and they know 100 people and they know 100 people and they know 100 people, that's like a billion people or something like that, right? And so if I don't do everything that I can to become the best that I can be, then I let those 100 people down, which in turns out I ended up letting the world down by not striving to be the best that I can be.
Hmm.
And so it's that constant reminder like, hey, I'm letting everyone down if I don't become the best that I can be. I'm letting my future self down. I'm letting the people who came before me down. I'm letting the entire world now down. Because there's also another quote that says, I may not change the world, but I guarantee you I'll help the person who does, or something like that. So it's like I got to make sure that I become the best that I can be.
I love that mentality. I speak to a lot of dads these days. I'm in my mid 50s with young kids, and the concept that you grasped so early on, uh, is incredible because most people go through life not trying to be the best or understanding the impact that they could make just by their own actions, right? And that's what you're talking about is your own
Hmm.
actions to be the best. Um, you've made some big decisions. Any regrets to this point?
I don't really believe in regrets. I feel like only time I would regret something if I didn't get anything from it. And not from it as in terms of like monetary or using people or something like that. Like if I didn't learn anything from it, or I feel like that's the only time wasted. Because even if you lose money or lose a loved one, or in terms of like a relationship, like breakup or whatever, um, you know, there's always something for the most part I feel like you could learn. Just the difficulty sometimes is just finding what that lesson is. But if there's absolutely no lesson, then you know I would say that was time wasted for the most part. Everything I've done, even for example, when I was working 70 hours and I didn't spend any time with my friends in the summer, it was a lesson. Like, hey, maybe I shouldn't work this much because I won't have any time for a personal life. Like, and this is like different lessons along the way that I've been able to pick up. So I wouldn't say I have any regrets.
John, you're going to go a long ways with that mentality. Hey, and by the way, I haven't heard the name K Jewelers for a lot of years. When I was young, when you're young, if you get good advice, it's a start to establish your credit so that way, as you get older, you can eventually buy a house with good credit. Well, the first
Yeah.
credit I ever got was at K Jewelers because they extended me a line of credit, about $100 ring. I think I put $10 down on it. By the way,
Wow.
this is like 1983. And I had the money to buy the whole thing, but my grandpa's like, "Hey, just make the payment on time every month for the next 6 months, and you'll establish your credit, and you can build from there." And he was right. I developed great credit at 17 years old, I think, because I was working everything.
Yeah.
Anyways, K Jewelers was responsible for that. Couple questions for you.
Yeah.
In your bio, it talks about how, I mean, literally, the word is deeply passionate about helping others. And the question I have for you is, a lot of our youth, they're still trying to obtain something for themselves. And,
Yeah.
listening to your story, you're not too far into your own story, but you've already developed the mentality of helping others. Why is
Yeah.
it? Why is that something that you're already so deeply passionate about?
Fulfillment. Right. I think that, and I got this idea kind of a little bit from a guy named Jordan Peterson that I listened to,
I
but
love
how
Jordan.
the pursuit of happiness, he says, is a hedonistic aim, right? And because it's happy, and it's also an aim that's kind of, um, it's kind of pointless essentially because if life is essentially suffering, right, and your pursuit in life is to be happy, then if you're not happy and life is suffering, now you're suffering for no reason, which is essentially hell, speaking metaphorically, right? And
Hmm.
so for me, it was always, not always, but as soon as I realized that, it's like, what would satiate me, right? And fulfillment. And the best way to get fulfillment, at least from what I've heard, what I've found personally, is helping other people. And as you said, a lot of people my age are earlier on in their journey, but they don't realize how much they could help because with anyone, a lot of the things we tend to do that's natural to us and easy for us, we don't value it as much. And I'll share a story of when I taught my first social media class. Right, it was back in January of this year, and I was in as I said, that mastermind group that I mentioned, and I made a quick Facebook post in the Facebook group because one morning I was in the gym, so I couldn't share, and I made a quick Facebook post, 5 tips on social media, very general, never taught a class before in my life, and one of the moderators of the call was like, "Hey John, do you mind teaching a class on this?" Instead of saying, "Yeah, of course," I said, "I never taught a class before," and I almost fumbled an opportunity, but she was like, "John, just let us know when you want this scheduled." So I'm super grateful for her because I ended up teaching that class and I had over 400 people sign up, and 200 people live on Zoom. And so I didn't think I was a social media guru. I wasn't claiming to be. I just knew a little something, just from being young and using the platform growing up, and I shared that. And from there, 450 people saw value in what I was teaching, and I was only 2 steps ahead of them. So no matter, where you are in your journey in your walk, as long as you're 2 steps ahead of the person that you want to help, there's something that you can help them with. And as I said, that feeling you get from helping others is that feeling of fulfillment, right? It's like you eat, your chicken and your protein and, a good hearty meal that's going to keep you full longer. If you eat some cake, yes, it'll taste good. You'll be a little happy, right? But you'll still be hungry. It's not fulfilling. It's not, you still have that emptiness that you need to fill up.
Well, great insights, by the way. And I asked him the question intentionally because most people are running around selfishly, and here you are, this early in the development of your business, and you've already understood the importance of giving back and the value of that. I worked with my business coach for several years, David Meltzer, and we used to
Hmm.
talk about the power of giving. And you give without wanting anything in return, but the way the world works, it comes back 10x.
Yeah.
Mentioned Jordan Peterson as well. It's interesting to me what the wisdom that you've garnered from you're following him and listening to his teachings, how half of society can push against him and his message when his message is so clean and
Yeah.
coming from the heart. So I really appreciate where you're at, because I fear for society, especially the ones that are pushing against people like Jordan Peterson, what he's trying to accomplish. Um,
Yeah.
I think shift gears a little bit and talking about some of the value that you bring through the work that you're doing, and maybe our listeners can engage you a little bit. Um, I saw again on your bio talking about engaging in short term videos, short form videos.
Yeah.
Sorry. Um, Interesting thing about that, about a year and a half ago, when I was really getting in full stride on this podcast show, I had a guest reach out to me via video. He sent me a video that he taped just to ask to be
Hmm.
on my show. And what was interesting about that, nobody had done that before. I didn't even have to think twice about having him on my show. Like, of course, I'm going to have him on my. The guy made a video. Now I've duplicated that a couple times for some business deals, and it's worked quite well. Tell me what your strategy
Yeah.
is and how you utilize them, because it struck a chord with me before.
Yeah, so I have 2 pages, right? They have my personal page, and on there, I'm posting a lot more, a lot of like real estate content, right? And from there, I do a little more trendy stuff, where I'd have the stuff popping on the screen, and the different colored fonts and all that jazz, or but on my podcast page, so I use a software called Riverside, right? And Riverside is like Zoom for podcasters, essentially. The beauty of
Oh,
Riverside is that you could talk for an hour, 30 minutes, an interview, and literally, while you're interviewing that person, you could press one button on your keyboard. For me, it's on my keyboard, it's the M button. And I'm just pressing M whenever someone that I interview as a guest drops a good gem. I just press M. So I'm clipping these clips throughout the entire interview. Then at the end of the interview, I can go back. I can look at all the clips, and then I pretty much put them with a click of a button. You don't need to have any editing experience. With a click of a button, I take them from horizontal to vertical, download those to my phone, and then there's an app called Captions for Talking Video. Upload it into the Captions for Talking Video app and get some dynamic captions on the screen. Change the color, put some emojis on there, and all with the click of a couple buttons, right? And then I started uploading, and I just start, for my podcast page, I'm doing close to 2 to 3 videos a day. I slacked off the past couple of days because I'm working on some other projects right now for the podcast, but I have enough clips right now to last me if were to post a short form video a day well into 2024. Just because short form video is what's now. Here's some advice that I've heard from people in the industry, like that are actual influencers, is that no one knows when, but sooner or later, people are going to start getting short form video fatigue, right? People are going to get tired of mindlessly scrolling, and they're going to want to sit down to actually watch something again. So if you can focus anywhere, focus on YouTube, because YouTube right now is making a lot of efforts to become not only just a video hub, but an actual social media platform. They just released a feature where they have handles now on YouTube. Before, you couldn't use a community guide, the community tab, unless you had 1,000 subscribers. Now they have the community tab open to anyone, right? And so they're starting to open up a lot of features, and then they're shortly gonna soon they're gonna monetize shorts. So that's gonna incentivize a bunch of creators, and YouTube already has the best monetization for the long form platform. So once they monetize shorts, a bunch of creators are gonna start hopping on YouTube. On top of that, it's already owned by Google, the largest search engine, and YouTube itself is the second most visited website. So video is where you want to be, but long form video is king because of the ability you have to repurpose that content. And then also because once people start getting short form video fatigue, if you can start generating long form content now, you'll have what the people want, and you'll be way ahead of the curve.
Great advice. I took my notes. I hope if you're listening, you took your notes too, because John's right on. As a matter of fact, people listen to him, but they don't always follow his lead. Gary Vaynerchuk was talking about this, almost 2, 3 years ago, about taking long form video and chopping it up, where you can repurpose it. You can do a screenshots, and now you have a meme. You can do short video. You can, push that video out on all the different media channels, including YouTube, like you said, John. And obviously you're doing it all. I just did a quick browse through some of your social media. If you're listening, listen to John, because John's doing the right things and he's going in the right direction. So I really appreciate you throwing that advice out there. Tell us about your podcast and some of your other projects, and how people can reach out to you and maybe utilize some of your teachings.
Yeah, so the thing I'm going all in right now, as I said, I started a social media agency, but I'm really going all in on the podcast. Like I want that to be my thing because I eventually want to get into public speaking. As I said, I had my first public, like in-person speaking gig yesterday, from the time that we're recording this, and I'm currently booked for Orlando in January. I'm gonna be at Podfest Expo giving a Pecha Kucha speech, which is like a 5 minute or 5 to 6 minute speech, or presentation there. So slowly but surely getting into the public speaking space. But the podcast is really where it's walk number two wealth. So walk to wealth. And right now I'm currently working on creating a subscription for that podcast, so I can start creating more content. Ask me anything. Start posting like exclusive interviews there. So that's my baby, my pride and joy. And that's where I'm going to be putting all my efforts and all my focus into, is just really growing that, so I can start getting that message out to more people and start helping people become more, financially literate and build wealthy, abundant lives. I genuinely feel like if everyone was at least operating from a mindset of abundance, from a place of abundance, right? And that doesn't mean you have to have $1 million net worth. That doesn't mean you have to have, make a top 1% earner. But if you just can operate from a place of abundance, right, I feel like the world would genuinely be a better place. So that's kind of what I'm really focusing on now, and how the best way to get in contact with me is, check out the podcast.
Well, I just found it easy to find on Spotify, by the way, or whatever your platform is. Walk the number two wealth, and John's got a number of episodes on there. John looks like a good body of work. I look forward to listening to some of your shows. Um, Give us some advice for the youth, right? Because
Okay.
I saw that you talk about, let's not, we don't have to go the traditional route of college. Okay. And I've been preaching that
Hmm.
for the last 4 years. I only took a couple classes and dropped out of college. I've had a wonderful, successful career last 30 plus years. And as you've mentioned, working 9 to 5 into your 60s isn't always the answer anymore. But what is your message for people in your age demographic along those same lines? How can they understand that there is opportunities beyond just pushing into that college?
Yeah, I'd say find your purpose, right? And it sounds a little grandiose. It sounds a little like woo woo sometimes, like my purpose in life, like what, how on earth I'm just 20 years old, I'm 21, however old you may be. Some people are a lot older and haven't found their purpose, right? So the best thing I could do is like there's something in Japanese called ikigai, right? It's, what are you good at that, the world needs and is willing to pay for? um, and that you love doing, and kind of finding the intersection of between those four. Um, and you start, listing out, take a day, take a day off to spend some time reflecting. It's like, okay, what are the things that I'm actually good at? That could be marketing, it could be exercising, that could be whatever it is. Just list out everything, right? And then make a list of all the things that you love to do that you would do so even if you didn't get paid for, right? Make a list of everything. Find the intersections and start there, right? If you have something on both lists, and then after that you find those things, if you want to take a step further, what does the world need? List out everything there that you think the world needs, the gaps, right, that you could probably fill. And if there's even more intersection, and then it's like, what is the world willing to pay for, right? Elon Musk has a quote is, the people who get paid the most usually solve the biggest problem. I disagree, because you can solve a big problem, but if no one wants to answer to that big problem, what good is what good is the solution? So in order to get paid more, you have to solve relevant problems and provide value. He who provides the most value always wins in the end. So, start by, taking a day, maybe a couple hours, just to reflect what you like to do. And then from there, once you kind of got a little bit something, kind of create your personal mission statement. And right, it's a quick, easy formula is, my mission in life is to blank, right? Put in your, a verb. Um, and then through helping them through blank. So my mission in life is to enlighten, or by blank, right? Enlighten and empower young adults, to help them build wealthy, abundant lives, right? And just right, find something that you like to do and how you're gonna help them, and start there. And the sooner you give it a try, the sooner you realize whether or not that's your actual mission or not, and then the sooner you can get on to the next thing, so that you can get one step closer to what it is that you actually should be doing.
Great wisdom and advice. And if you're a young adult, hell, any age, listen to John. He's got it figured out. And there's no doubt that if he doesn't know it, he's going to figure it out. John, I'd be shocked if you're not a multimillionaire in the next couple of years. Not that money's the end all, but with money we can help others. And I wouldn't be surprised if your ability to help a lot of people in a short period of time doesn't come true. So appreciate your wisdom today and what you stand for. And man, just being on the show and your time.
Yeah, thanks again for the opportunity. I genuinely appreciate, you taking the time to, sit down and have this conversation with me. And I hope that, the listeners could take at least one thing away and put that into, whether that's their business or into their personal life, and start making some changes.
Well, look, if you listen to the show, I'm going to put John's information in the show notes. And John, we hope that you'll come back and be a guest again someday.
Thanks, will do. As long as the door's open, I'll walk through it.
This door is going to be open for you, buddy. Thank you. Thank you for listening to today's show. It is my pleasure and honor to interview all of the guests that have been on the Answer is Yes podcast. If you have enjoyed the show, please go on iTunes and subscribe, give a rating, or simply tell a friend about the show. We also believe in the message of our guests and the positive influence of their stories. As my own mentor and coach, David Meltzer, has taught me, spend some time every day thinking and writing about the things in your own life that you have more than enough of. You will find out how blessed we really are. Please visit my website, livelifedriven.com, for the latest updates about me and what I'm doing. Plus, I post a monthly blog about the many topics on this show. This podcast can also be found there. As I learned early on in life, what you believe is what you will achieve. Thanks, Mark Victor Hansen, and thank you, and have a great week.